All right, thank you everyone for coming, and if you're new to Gardner, welcome to Gardner. I have a few people that we'd like to recognize here with us from our City Council. We have our City Council President, Elizabeth Kaczynskis. And then Councilor at Large, and also the Chair of the Gardner Redevelopment Authority, Ron Cormier. And City Councilor from Ward 5, Alec Durnallowitz, over there in the corner as well. We have our State Senator, Ann Goby. State Representative, Jonathan Zlotnick. Mount Wachusett Community College President, Jim Vanderhoeven. And then I'd also like to welcome our community partners that we have here, the board from the Wachusett Business Incubator, who will be getting a grant promoted today, as well as our partners in redevelopment of the downtown from Candor Realty, Molina Realty, MassAv Rentals, Empire Management, and Door Fund Incorporated as well, who will hear about the great work that they're doing in the downtown throughout the program here today. Really excited to see all of the development and growth that's happening through the downtown. I feel like every time we have a one-stop announcement here in Gardner, something happens with the weather outside. Every single time. With that park that we were supposed to be. We were supposed to be across the street both last year and today to announce all of these grants, but no matter what, it's actually cool to be in this building because this building is actually one of the buildings that is going to be benefiting from the awards that we're talking about here today, with this old Bank of America building being adjusted into a new high-end restaurant in the heart of our downtown. You look around everything that's happening in Gardner. Over the past 12 months since we announced the last one-stop grants here in Gardner, 13 of the buildings in downtown have changed ownerships. We only have one building in the downtown with an absentee landlord still. "32 businesses have opened their doors in Gardner since the last time we had this announcement. 7 existing businesses have expanded or moved to new locations to grow what they offer to our residents. About 170 residential units are being constructed or renovated in the downtown alone. Over $400,000 in state and federal grant funding has been given out to assist small businesses who were negatively impacted from the pandemic. 8 businesses have so far received funding from the city's sign replacement and improvement grant for their commercial storefronts. And about 10 to 15 buildings and landlords have received funds of up to $50,000 to fix and repair the facades of their buildings utilizing our ARPA funds that we received as well. So there's a lot of growth happening here in Gardner, and I'm excited to see if that just came from last year's MassWorks and Underutilized Properties grant, what's going to happen from the 4 grants that Gardner received here today. But we have a lot more people to hear from than just me. It's now my honor to introduce someone who's been a great partner for us here in the city of Gardner, Secretary Mike Keneally. Mr. Secretary.
Well, that was very impressive, Mayor, to hear all that. I can't say more about the power of our programs than what you already highlighted there. It's incredible. But great to see you all today. Great to be with the mayor, our colleagues in the legislature, folks on my team. Could the folks on my team raise their hands, please, and be acknowledged? I'm gonna talk a little bit about this one stop for growth, but and it's highlighted nicely here on these maps. We make an effort to get these grants all around the state and address a very broad range of needs and opportunities. And we realized some years ago we had a lot of programs, and there was a fair amount of complexity in terms of how these programs get delivered. We had, in this case, 12 different programs, all with different applications on different timelines with different criteria, announced at different times throughout the year. And we realized it was difficult for our municipal partners and other applicants to sort of put these programs together and have a holistic view of the capabilities of state government, and really to have a dialogue with us about projects that are important to them before they went and applied for funding. In a lot of cases, we'd hear about a project for the first time when we got a grant application. And in some cases, it was the right project at the right time, applying for the right program. In a lot of cases, those factors weren't at play. And so we said, how can we simplify this process? How can we combine these, in this case 12 programs, into a single front door? We call that the one stop for growth. And the process starts with what we call an expression of interest, where early on in the process, a community just comes in and tells us, look, here are the 3 or 4 or 5 projects that really matter to us. Here are the things we're trying to get done. For example, in downtowns. We're big believers in downtown redevelopment. And we give advice on the projects. Is it the right project at the right time? Which program is most applicable? And then people apply for funding. Single front door for 12 programs. It's a very powerful way and a much better, streamlined, more efficient way to deliver our programming. But it started with an idea some years ago, but ideas take execution. Someone's got to turn ideas into policy, into programs, into funding, and that's what my team does so well, and I'm very grateful to them for their efforts. These are 2 great programs we're going to highlight today. Dan and Ashley will spend some more time on it, but again, this theme of downtowns, making investments in our communities. If you were to look at a list of the folks getting awards for these programs today, it really highlights an incredible, diverse array of needs and opportunities all across the state, and a great list of partners that are doing this work. So I think Dan's going to get into some more of the details on it, but it's wonderful to be here today. Congratulations to Gardner, who's receiving 5 awards through the One Stop this year. 2 we're going to talk about today and 3 others, but and great to hear more about your great work, Mayor, and all the things going on in the downtown. So wonderful to be with you today. With that, I think I'm going over to Dan Rivera, who runs MassDevelopment, who has been a terrific partner of ours before he took this role, and a really essential economic development partner with us through all this great work. Dan Rivera.
Thank you, Secretary. It's a pleasure to be here. And again, the work that you guys have led us through the One Stop has been important. But I think one of the things that we kind of forget because we're on the other side of COVID is imagine being the Secretary of Economic Development when you had to shut down the economy and then open it back up. And all those calls for all those businesses, I think it's easy today. We think, oh, we're through it. But it wasn't all that clear when we were doing that. So I think another round of applause for the work you did to make sure that we open this economy. It's really easy to talk about Mayor Nicholson because he's a UMass Amherst grad. So I always like to, yeah, man, yeah, round of applause, UMass Amherst. So thank you for being in town. And there is a correlation between 5 grant applications and wins and you, and that is the state's always looking at if we put dollars to work, are the municipalities actually going to put them to work? Are they going to stay dormant? And I think that reflects the good leadership you have here, your support from the city council, and the boards that support the development work. So thank you so much for your support here today, and of course to the great legislators that are here with us today, Reps Lotney, Senator Goby, Senator Cronin. Thanks so much. These projects would not be here unless you supported them. For those of you who don't know, MassDevelopment is the state's development finance agency and land bank. We have had the pleasure of being involved in several Gardner projects. Most recently, we participated in this project with Fidelity Bank to provide $2.9 million in loans to Mass Ave rentals, led by developer Gary Lord. I think Gary's here. I just talked to him, right? Those funds will be used to renovate and convert 2 vacant commercial buildings and make them into 29 market rate apartments. Again, we like to be where the market's not. Lots of people are going to come and talk to you about affordable housing, and you should do that. Housing at all costs, everywhere we can get it, because we're in a crisis. But we'd like to help with the market rate stuff too, so make sure that we have a nice mixed income situation. This revitalization project will add much needed housing. So today we're here in Gardner to celebrate the latest recipients of the MassDevelopment's Real Estate Services Technical Assistance Program. And this is a program, one that's most important in our tools in the Commonwealth's Economic Development Toolbox, because it really does help people figure out what they're going to do with their project. And we have subject matter expertise in MassDevelopment. It's part of our superpowers. We have 2 superpowers. One is financing, industrial commercial finance, and the other superpower is commercial real estate and development of housing. We use those 2 superpowers for good. Don't worry about it. But mostly to create jobs and create housing and redevelop downtowns. And I think that this is one of those programs that does exactly that. The services team is really important to be a partner for the municipalities. They can support studies and feasibility analysis, RFPs, RFQs. When I was, for a short moment, I was mayor in the city of Lawrence, and it took me a little while to figure out, you actually have to have a study, and you have to have a report, and you have to have all these paperwork that shows that what you want to do in your area is actually a good thing to do and feasible. But it's also helpful to keep the stuff you don't want downtown out of downtown too. So if you hear somebody say, oh, we're going to do a study, let them do the study. Well, we're going to do a plan. Let them do a plan. Because then you get to say, hey, listen, it's not in the study, it's not in the plan, you can't do those things. Or, hey, the study and the plan have done these great things. So it's really important that you use these real estate programs for that. You know, a special thanks to the team that does that. I'll name them later on when we do the other program, but we're really excited to work with these awardees and help them move forward with each of these projects that you're here today. Again, it's seed corn for the important work in the communities. It's now my pleasure to introduce our great Undersecretary for Community Development, a friend and a supporter of MassDevelopment, who will announce this year's recipient, Ashley Stoba.
Thank you, Dan. And the MassDevelopment team has been an unbelievable partner to us in the One Stop. It's a huge collaborative effort with a lot of staff time, so really thank you, Dan. So I get to do the really fun part 2 times today, and I get to give out the awards. So Pat Shannon, our One Stop coordinator, who is an amazing key player of the One Stop team, will hand out the award. So I'll invite people, if you're here, please walk up, grab an award. We'll stand up here, do a group picture, and then we'll do it all over again. Okay. So the town of Boxford is receiving a $25,000 award to develop a plan for the reuse of a former senior community center. No. The city of Gardner, we know you're here, is receiving $40,000 for the implementation phase of 2 DIF districts that encompass the city's 2 urban renewal areas. The town of Hull is receiving $25,000 to continue work to implement the Nantasket Beach bid district. All here. The city of Malden is receiving $30,000 to conduct a reuse study and operate our RFP for the planned center of the arts and culture located in a former courthouse. The city of Medford is receiving $50,000 to conduct a feasibility analysis to create Medford Square DIF. Yeah. The town of Rowley is receiving $30,000 to develop an RFP to identify an affordable housing developer for a 2-acre parcel of land near the MBTA. And the city of Taunton is receiving $50,000 to evaluate the highest and best use of a now closed nursing home. Okay. So you can do a group picture. And the legislators can come up too if you'd like to do a group picture.
I think in front of the podium.
Yeah, we'll do it. Dan is the picture expert.
That's the former mayor.
Exactly. And you can
Gotta get the shot.
Yeah. All right.
Move this way to the camera.
You want us to move?
Just because the camera's in the way.
Oh, I understand. All right, we're sliding.
Thank you.
Awesome. Congratulations. And it is now my honor to introduce TREVOR BEAUREGARD, who has a very long title, and he warned me about this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Director of Community Development for the City of Gardner, and also the Executive Director of the Redevelopment Authority? Correct. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Ashley. So, forgive my cheat sheets, but it's been a while since I've done this. We're talking post-COVID, pre-COVID, wow. Yeah. So, you know, having the longevity here with the staff of the City of Gardner, I think I'd probably be the best one to actually reach out and thank the Baker Polito administration for all their support in the downtown over the past 8 years. Had a lot of involvement here, as you can see the progress being made across the street. The project that was mentioned earlier that MassAv Rentals is undergoing. I want to thank Secretary Keneally, Dan Rivera from MassDevelopment, and their teams for their continued support. Standing here today, I thought it would be a good chance to really focus on the project that we have ongoing across the street. Highlight the opportunities over the past 8 years that we've had with various programs to make that project work. The vacant lot next to those buildings where the park is was the site of the Orpheum movie theater building. And back in 2015, it was, well, actually back in mid-2000s, it actually ravaged by fire, and it sat there for a good decade. We were unsuccessful with negotiating with the owner at the time to buy it, so the redevelopment authority stepped up, and under our urban renewal plan, took it by eminent domain in partnership with the city. That was back in 2015. Then we used, in 2017, some brownfield money from MassDevelopment and some of our mini entitlement block grant money to demo the building and then design and build a new pocket park and public parking lot out behind. We actually put aside a portion of the Orpheum Theater property to allow for parking for the redevelopment project that's ongoing right now. So they actually purchased a large portion of it to build a 43 spot parking lot. So that all worked out well. Again, with the support of the state, it wouldn't have happened. Utilizing, well, back in 2018, I should mention that the redevelopment authority also used $400,000 in mass development money to purchase the two buildings that you see that under redevelopment. We actually partnered with Mass Ave Rentals after that fact, who was successful last year in obtaining a underutilized properties grant for $900,000 to bring in the necessary capital and make the project work. And as you can see, it's working right now. I just want to thank also the administration for the $40,000 grant to allow us to move forward with the DIF project. And I believe sometime next year, probably sometime in the early spring, summer, that project will probably be the first one that impacts our DIF fund if the DIF is actually approved. So it's exciting stuff. Lastly, I just want to throw kudos out to the economic development team at the state level for your informational sessions that you conducted a few years back, for taking into consideration all the input that the local communities, regional agencies gave you, and then developing policies and programs like the underutilized properties program to help localities like Gardner. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Trevor. And there are so many stories like that small grants turn into big grants, turn into investments by the private sector that turn into economic development, that turn into real impacts. And we, growing up as a kid, you would walk by all these, kind of empty buildings, and you're not really sure what would ever happen to them. And frankly, it kind of reflects back on the population too. Like, they think, this thing has been, the theater was there, burned for how long? And you're a kid, you walk by those things, you think, if that could never be anything, or never be anything, what does it say about me and the future that I have? And so seeing dirt fly and seeing wood in stacks inside a window in a place no one's seen something like that is incredibly important to make a place special. And the next grant we're going to talk about is Commonwealth Places, that really talks about this idea of how do you do placemaking. And placemaking is at the heart of it, where we choose a place where community can drive projects in order to revitalize the downtown neighborhood and commercial districts. I like to call it like partying with a purpose. And it's just one of those things. And think about these projects can include outdoor community spaces, public art, exhibits, cultural events, and much more. They really do re-energize a space, and nothing will move the negative attitude of an area than really energizing it and bringing it to life. We were trying to deal with a space under a bridge that was really, becoming a problem for the city. People wanted to fence it in. It's the worst thing you can do. You got to activate it. So we put lights down there, we put some parking, but we also put some like playground stuff. And the more you lit it, the more people that don't want to be seen in public will move away from it. And that's how you activate. And these type of programs are going to be the things that really re-energize the spaces in most of these communities. They really do strengthen the social fabric of communities, bringing people together and getting all behind one thing in one area. Plus, these awards can inspire our public and private investment as well. Once you start seeing that, then people are like, well, if all those people are going to be hanging out down there, might as well start a restaurant nearby or maybe a flower store or something like that. And so this is one of those programs that are really important. But before I welcome up Undersecretary Stoba, who will give you the list of people who've gotten it, I just want to, again, recognize that this day would not have been made possible without the 8 years of leadership by Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, and their entire administration. I think, and having, in my short time here, having Secretary Keneally as the chair of the board of MassDevelopment, it's incredibly important that all three of the people that I just mentioned spent time in municipal government. It's just really easy for folks to come into these positions and be, have ideas of how to make impact. But if you've been a selectman or a select woman, or if you had to figure out the way of a local public school system, like Secretary Keneally had, you get a sense of what the localities need. And so without that support, we would not have been here. Along with the streamlining of the community one-stop for growth, that application process has really made life easier for the end user. I think it has made every program better. So a special thanks to you, Secretary Keneally, and to the administration for all the work they've done. With that, I'd like to also thank, finally, and so I can say their names now so I know what's coming back up, Claire O'Neill, Nick Quinto, and Ben Murphy are here. Can you just raise your hand? I like it's good to recognize them because they do a lot of hard work. But also, if you have questions about more money, those are the people to go to. You can talk to me too. So on behalf, on behalf of the whole MassDevelopment team, thank you so much, and bring back up Undersecretary Stoba.
Party with a purpose. That's pretty good. I was going through we reviewed all of these grants over the summer and over the fall, and I was going through them all last night, and Party with a Purpose definitely sounds appropriate for a lot of these, but I'm just going to give a brief description, even though they're doing a lot of cool stuff. So we're going to do the same thing all over again. So the first award is the North Shore CDC, which is hosting a cultural experience to connect the hearts of immigrants in the Salem community. Now and There in Charlestown is supporting phase 1 of an equitable placemaking in the Lot Lab. Amazing Things Art Center in Framingham for a 600 square foot community art garden in Framingham. Community Teamwork in Lowell is going to increase visibility in place for a farmer's market. Oh, yeah. The Friends of Fitchburg Abolitionist Park is going to hold a Juneteenth block party to celebrate completion of the final phase of the park. The Commonwealth Mural Collaborative is going to install new murals at the Fresh Paint Springfield, an annual mural festival in Springfield. The City of Gardner is going to receive a $30,000 grant to create 6 parklets in downtown parking spaces for the restaurants to have outdoor dining. The Massachusetts Design, Art, and Technology Institute in New Bedford, thank you for driving, and I know we're going to hear from you in just a minute, is receiving $50,000 for outdoor public art installations at Shelter 2022. The City of Quincy is receiving $50,000 to create an outdoor gathering and green space within the North Quincy bid. No. The Town of Blandford is receiving $15,800 to highlight the patio and seating options and provide bike parking outside of their library. The Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce is receiving $5,000 to implement a placemaking and common space activation project in South and North Amherst. And last but not least, the Northampton Forbes Library is receiving $2,500 to help develop a performance stage outside of the Forbes Library for community programs.
Congratulations.
Northampton.
And now I will invite Lindsay Misch, who will deliver remarks on behalf of the Massachusetts Design and Art Tech Institute New Bedford. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here representing the City of New Bedford today. My name's Lindsay and I'm the Executive Director, and I'm also here with my founder, Gail Mandel, who came up with this crazy idea to make high caliber art accessible on the street, part of the community. And you know, at first people really didn't understand the impact that it could have. And then after our first project, which did at first seem like selling snake oil, like, hey, we want to put this temporary thing up, it's going to be silver above a park that used to be a parking lot that, you know, was before that a parking garage. And then after our first season of doing it, it brought new partnerships with small businesses who told us that they received 25% increase in visitorship, galleries, places that, you know, places were having guests that would say, oh, we read about you in the Globe and we've never been to New Bedford before. I thought you guys were just about whaling. And so there's something to, like, being a believer in art because it really can change a space. And the buildings that we would cover with banners or construction sites, suddenly people were more interested in walking on that side of the street. And I know because we don't have a building, we just invested in the art. And I'm just like watching our projects and seeing activity and working with New Bedford Housing Authority to say like, oh yes, people didn't want to walk underneath that scaffolding until you guys did that project. So now can we help to match your project? And so working with the city and New Bedford's Rapid Recovery Plan, and I don't know if we're in the right place at the right time or if this really is just what people should really be doing too. So I highly recommend figuring out how to incorporate art, because don't call it art, call it like, oh, we're going to create new lighting, and then you can somehow figure out how to put it in your budget line in the city, because it's hard to pay for art. People want to cut it all the time, but it can be something else. And I really appreciate the state for acknowledging what that can do. So $50,000 is a lot of money to us. But because we did that, we had match grants. We have banks as businesses that are helping to fund our projects and pledging multi-year gifts. And we just can't wait to see what's going to happen in year 6. Like we're already looking ahead, and we would not have been able to do that or get through like the hardships of COVID without having this big trajectory of money like this. And it also made it more clear that art in public spaces that is not intimidating to walk through a museum door. You know, these establishments that somehow have to still work through the barrier of getting, making their own businesses places for everyone. I mean, if you put art where everyone is, then they'll see it and be inspired and know what is possible. So thank you.
I think one of the key things that keeps getting said here is that this is all a team effort, and this isn't anything that's one particular person, that's one particular community in the Commonwealth, but it really is a team. So I just want to recognize, can everyone here who's on my team just raise your hand for a second? I couldn't do anything I'm doing here without everyone who's raising their hand here. I mean, from the representatives from the police, the veterans agents, our economic development office, our GRA, all of our appointed boards and commissions, my office. It really is a team effort here, and I'm very blessed and lucky to work with all of them. So from me to all of you, thank you very much for all you do. And I also want to give a shout out to Jess DeRoy, our economic development coordinator, who wrote the grants that we're all receiving for Gardner today. So thank you very much, Jess. And none of this would also be possible without our partners at the state level. So please join me in welcoming our great state senator, Ann Goby.
I am honored to be here. Gardner is new in my district, and just as of Tuesday, right, with the vote. So I'd like to take a lot of credit for the money coming in. I don't know if there's a correlation. I get elected, and you guys get more money. I think it's great. Thanks to the Secretary, Undersecretary, Mr. Mayor, we appreciate the investment that you've made in the community. And when you were talking about kind of party with a purpose, I think for the short time, for folks that are familiar with Gardner, and for the time that I've had the opportunity to be involved in this community, you'll see that it's coming up on their 100th anniversary as a city. And I'm extremely excited to be here for that second 100 years, because they do planning with a purpose here. in Gardner, and always putting the people of the community first. You have wonderful leadership in this city with your mayor, with your members of your city council, and it's nice to see the president of Mount Wachusett Community College here, because that tells you how important what goes on in the city is to the people in this entire region. And, you know, they set the standard here. It's good leadership, paving the way for good things to happen. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and join my good friend, Representative Zlotnick, and do what we can on the state level to continue to support these wonderful programs and to make sure, we know that there's going to be a change in administration. Again, I want to thank you and for being here, because, you know, quite frankly, right, this is, you know, the week before Thanksgiving. There are folks that know that their jobs may change dramatically over this next month and a half, and yet they're here today. They're here today and working to the very end, and that says a lot about the character of the folks that are sitting in these two seats, specifically in the front rows. And so I do, again, want to thank you for the investment that you've made, not just in Gardner, but throughout the entire Commonwealth over these past several years. We do appreciate it, so thank you very much.
Up next, we have a very close friend of mine. Being someone who was first elected at 25, certainly had a learning curve with it, let alone someone who was elected at 21 and who I call on almost a daily basis being like, hey, I have this crazy idea, what do you think? And who we've actually been able to accomplish a lot with, not only here in downtown, but across the city, that I'm sure he'll mention when he gets up here, Representative Jonathan Zlotnick.
I think an interesting thing about our situation here in Gardner is that Mike and I both started as staff in the offices that we now hold at still a young age, even though we keep getting older. So, you know, this funding and these programs from the state are so critically important. You know, you look around Gardner and you look around elsewhere in my district and you see it time and time again. We just couldn't do these things on our own. We couldn't attract the caliber of private investment and the amount of private investment in these spaces without that investment from the state that oftentimes is the first through the door, and that's so critical. I look at this map over here, and I was reminded of several years ago when Lieutenant Governor Polito and I, and then Mark Hawk, the mayor, announced the first MassWorks grant to do the start of that big redevelopment project. And at the time we said we were creating a zone of opportunity, because at the time what we were investing in was that road and clearing some old buildings and really making space that was habitable for future investment. And now, a few years later, that's what we're on the precipice of seeing break ground. And that's what's exciting and important about all these programs. And it's been mentioned a couple times already, but these two maps here represent the entire width and breadth of the Commonwealth. Massachusetts is fortunate. We're a wealthy and successful state. And I have to say that this administration, the Baker-Polito administration, has really done a great job to make sure that that wealth touches every zip code, that opportunity reaches into every city and town across this great state. And I want to spend just 1 second talking about the One Stop program, because one thing that we had, those of us who represent small communities, Senator Goby has a lot of experience representing very small communities, that these programs are great. They are. But when you have a town that has 7,000 to 8,000 people and a budget of $10 million a year, they don't have the resources and teams of people to be sifting through mountains of paperwork all the time. Is this grant right for us? Is that grant right for us? And then actually to go through it. Most of the time, the people writing the grants, it's the police chief in their spare time. It's the town manager on the weekends. That's how that gets done in small towns. And that's why this program that was created is so important to those small towns. And you look on this map, I represent that dark blue one there. They got 3+ grants, and that's one of the smallest town in my district. And they benefit from this program. And really the response to those concerns and that feedback that this administration and economic development specifically has put into this program, and the effort, again, making sure that no one's left out, making sure that these small towns have an equal opportunity to get access to these state funds. which are, again, so critical. So I really just want to thank you and all the work you guys have done over the years. The entire administration has really been a privilege to work with, but no more than economic development, because you guys get to bring us the big checks. So really, it has been a privilege, and we're so happy to have you here once again in the city of Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've talked a lot about the different programs that were being funded through the grants that were highlighted here. I do also want to point out just the other grants that the City of Gardner will be receiving from the Commonwealth Places, $30,000 for the parklets, as you heard, the real estate technical assistance, like you heard, the $40,000 for the district improvement financing implementation phase. That's in addition to last year's $10,000 that were awarded to get us through the first phase and a feasibility study of it. $150,500 for a new business park study. $25,000 from the Mass Downtown Initiative to help us with wayfinding in the downtown. And the Wachusett Business Incubator, $17,500 for work to help create a rural high technology center for about 15 entrepreneurs in the region. So thank you very much to the Wachusett Business Incubator for the work that they're doing and partnering with us as well. But as Dan Rivera said earlier, this is all just part of a toolbox. It's great that we're highlighting this here today, but you look at what's been done over the years with last year's MassWorks grant. That's how this project is being able to be done. The underutilized properties grant that we're able to do with Mass Ave Rentals that spurred that development over there. Last year's site readiness ground that made it so that we could buy a vacant building that's falling in on itself that this year is scheduled to be torn down in the spring to make room for further development and traffic improvements in the area. You look at the vacant storefront revitalization district designation that the city just received from the Commonwealth this year as well, that's helping us get businesses into the door. The work that we've done since we opened a new school, utilizing one of our previous schools as a new community center for the city too, to bring in those nonprofit agencies that are now scattered throughout the city and having a hard time on their own under the same roof so that they can grow and collaborate with each other. This is all puzzle pieces in that box, more than just it is toolbox, but we can't put the puzzle pieces together without the tools from the Commonwealth. And I can't thank the Baker-Polito administration, Secretary Keneally under Secretary Stolba, Dan Rivera, for the partnership that they've done with us. And I'm excited to see what this is going to do with us in Gardner. I've often said that our job here in local government is to build a place that people feel happy and proud to call their home. And as someone who's only 28 years old, growing up here, I remember the building across the street where the park is now, not from when it was a movie theater because it had already closed at that point, but it was a bodega that we used to go to when my abuela and my mom wanted to make food from Nicaragua for Christmas. But I remember when it was torn down. I remember when the Mackey building was torn down, and everyone was like, oh, we're losing our development. What are we going to do now? But we're using that as our foundation to build upon and build a city that's stronger than we were before and that's resilient for the future and that has the population that we have to grow forward and come up with these new creative ideas. And I'm really proud that President Van der Hoeven is here as well, too, because we've now, in the early phases of starting a new downtown public art project, too, with the new, as odd as it sounds, trash cans that we put out throughout the city. Working with the Department of Corrections, we got the new trash garages because we had an issue with the trash cans filling up with water because there was no covering them. But now we have trash cans that look like mailboxes. So working with the art students at the Mount, we can paint each side and do a different thing as part of our centennial celebration next year as our 100th year as a city to bring in new public art opportunities into the city to show that there's life downtown. It's not breathing life into the downtown. It's there, and we just have to show it that it's there and make it so it's not as shy as it has been in the past. So we're ready to party with a purpose, as Dan said, and I look forward to seeing how this grant continues to benefit us in Gardner as we move forward. And I want to say thank you again to all of our community partners who are here. Now, let's get the work done. Thank you very much, and have a good day.